Hello everyone, welcome to Zach Logos Photography. Today we're going to be going over how to capture and edit the Orion Nebula. For this setting, I used the Nikon D850 and Sigma 70-200mm f2.8. This is the end photo after editing and stacking. The video will now proceed and I'll show you how to focus, capture, and stack. We will begin by focusing the camera on the nebula or galaxy you plan on photographing. First, zoom in on a particularly bright star, then place the screen or pasta strainer in front of the lens. As you focus the camera lens, the stars will have a perfect X shape, as seen in the video clip. Once the stars are focused, use the grid light pattern to position it somewhere in the middle frame. Go to time lapse or interval timer and shoot 900 plus shots with 1 second intervals. The preferred settings for me are 1.3 seconds, ISO 3200 and f2.8. After 5 minutes, come back out to your camera, shine a light to mark when you're readjusting. Reposition the stars in the same location you initially had them in. And rerun the interval timer for another 5 to 6 minutes. You will do this another 2 times for an average of 20 minutes integration time. Once you've done this multiple times and readjusted the stars and captured and stacked, put the lens cap on and capture a set of dark frames. Use the exact same settings you used to capture the light frames. And a preferred amount is 30 to 60. Once you've imported the photos, sort through them and delete any photos with movement. And before and after you realigned, marked by the white frames. After that, make sure there's no large airplane trails running through your photos. And if there are, delete any artifacts, clouds, or noticeable light. After that, you're going to sort the photos with the stars into a folder called Light Frames. And then you're going to sort the dark files, or the files with the lens cap on, into a folder called Dark Frames. Again, the dark frames will have the exact same settings as the light frames. Once you have sorted the frames into a dark frames folder and light frames folder, we will be then using a software to stack them called Deep Sky Stacker. Open Deep Sky Stacker. Stacking settings. Have standard mode set. Under light, have media kappa sigma clipping. And under dark, have media kappa sigma clipping with hot pixel detection and removal. After that, go to raw fit settings and make sure you have use camera white balance selected and set black point to 0 is not selected. Then go to open picture files where you will load the light frames. Make sure you select them from the correct folder. Once they load, you'll then go to dark files and select the dark frames. After that, at the bottom, you'll see your types of frames. Click check all. Now click register checked pictures. Under Actions, select Automatic Detection of Hot Pixels and Stack after registering. Then click Advanced and compute the amount of stars per frame. You're looking for around 200 and below. For this photo, I'm going to use 30%, which puts me at just around the 200 range. Then under stacking parameters, you can check your stacking to make sure the correct settings are set again. After that, make sure select the best is around 94% and click OK. It will now begin stacking, registering, creating a master dark file, and finally computing the image. On my computer, since I'm using full raw files, it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 hours. I normally do this overnight. I'll now fast forward this. At the end, it will auto-save the end file. You can see it here. That's the address of where it will be saved. Now we open it in Photoshop. Hit File, Open. Go to the Light Frames folder and scroll down, and it'll be named Autosave. Once the file is open, you will go to Image, select Mode, and change it from 32-bit channel to 16-bit channel. Then under Methods, select Exposure and Gamma. Click OK. Now we will crop the photo slightly. This removes any artifacts around the edge. Once cropped, make sure the layer is flattened. Now we will begin stretching the image. Under Curves, you're going to select Curve, and then under Presence, you're going to go to ArcSine 30. I will have the link below on where to get this. Once stretched at ArcSine 30, we are going to stamp up the image using the keys Shift, Control, Alt, M+E. Then go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. There's two types of level stretches. Either do an RGB stretch or do it by channel. For the first level stretch, we are going to look at the difference. As you can see, there's not too much of a difference once we go to channels, but the channels allow us us to have a little more play with color. Be careful not to clip the white thick portion. The goal is to have a neutral gray-black color. This looks about good. Now we will go and add a curves adjustment layer. On this photo, I will use an S-type curve to darken the blacks and maintain or increase the highlights. We will then stamp up the layer once again and repeat the levels adjustment stretch. This time we will just use an RGB stretch. That looks good. Again, we will repeat a curve stretch, this time by channel. Again, the goal is to have a neutral black-gray without removing or clipping any color of the actual nebula. As you can see the difference here. We will now stamp up the layer one more time, Shift, Control, Alt, N plus E. We will now do another levels adjustment. And then repeat with a curves adjustment, bringing down the blacks and maintaining or increasing the highlights. As you can see, the image has a purple hue, so we will bring down the reds. And then fine-tune the greens and blues. After we are happy with the image, we'll flatten the layer. and remove some of the vignetting with a mask. But before that, we'll go to adjustments and just level out the colors a little more to have that neutral black. That looks good. Click OK. Now we will duplicate the layer and go into Edit, Copy, then File, New. The copied image will be on your clipboard. Hit Create, then click Edit, Paste. Once pasted, go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. I prefer radius around 41 with a threshold at 0. Once there, click the Spot brush and make sure the hardness is set to 100% and the size is large enough to cover the entire nebula. Click on the nebula and remove it from the mask. Go to Layer, Flatten Image, then File, Save as a Copy. Make sure image compression is set to none. Then go back to your nebula photo, go to Image, Apply Image. Once there, select your United folder that you just created or the mask, go down to Blending, Subtract, Opacity 100%, Scale 1, Offset 50. As you can see, the vignetting and light pollution has been removed. Flatten the image, and then we're going to do some local camera raw adjustments. Go to Basic and Camera Raw, increase the texture and clarity, and then add a little vibrance and saturation. After that is completed, then head to Detail and do a slight noise reduction and a decent amount of color noise reduction, which removes the odd colors in the black areas. Select OK. Once you've completed that, we can do a few more stretches and adjustments. We'll go do another levels adjustment just to spread out the data a little more. That looks good. Click OK. Then select Curves. And we will do a few more adjustments through curves via channel layer. The outside of the Orion Nebula tends to have a bluish gray tint, and the inside tends to have a strawberry red, depending on the camera you are using. Remove the color from the blacks and add it to the gas and dust particles of the nebula. As you can see, it's a fine balance between color, and depending on your image, you might have to do a few more fine-tuning adjustments. I'm fairly happy with this. Flatten the image again. Making progress, but the blacks could be a little darker. We will then select another curves adjustment and do an S curve to darken the blacks. And finally, I will reduce the color in the blacks and add a little more saturation to the nebula. We're looking pretty good. The nebula's luminosity is not too overexposed. There's still a little bit of red in the black area, so we'll go ahead and decrease that. Flatten the image, and once you're happy with it, you can end at this point or continue with the rest of the video, and I'll show you how to add a little more magnification to the nebula. Go ahead and duplicate the layer, then go to Select, Highlights, and put fuzziness around 48 and range around 121. Click OK. Now the stars are selected. Click Select, Modify, Expand. I like 2 pixels. Then select, Modify, Feather by another 2 pixels. This makes sure you encapsulate the entire star. Then go to Select, Select and Mask. This is a key component. You want to completely mask out the nebula so that the luminosity reduction does not affect the gases. Copy on my screen on how to complete this. And again, make sure the complete amount of gas in nebula is masked out, or else it will not look properly at the end result. Looking pretty good. Once done, select OK. As you can see, the stars are now selected. You'll go up to Filter, Other, Minimum. And at minimum, you can do a range between 0.02 and 1.1. I like for this photo around 0.09. Click Ctrl H to deselect or hide selection. And now you can see the nebula is much more prevalent with the stars reduced. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing. This is the first time ever filming a YouTube video. I hope you enjoy. And again, the links are in the comment section.